Hey, and welcome to Prepper Talk Radio. I am Scott, and we got Paris, and we're doing a 30-minute live across all of our platforms right now, talking about emergency preparedness, evacuation planning, and answering additional questions that you guys come up with as we go through. It's a shorter than usual live, but we want to make sure it's good for you. And thanks for tuning in and being part of it. This episode is brought to you by Jase Medical. Check out jasemedical.com. You can use the code PrepperTalk. That's PREPPERTALK for a $10 off coupon code. So check out Jase Medical. It's the all-in-one personal antibiotic emergency kit that you can get. I've got mine. Shane and Paris each have theirs. And you know what? It is fantastic to have because when you're away from a doctor and you need some antibiotics, man, it could be a big, big difference in your life.
Absolutely.
And also make sure you follow us on our YouTube. We're trying to break 1,000. Once we do, we're going to give away a Jase case to one of our followers. So get in our Facebook group. Let us know you're following us. And when we do that drawing, you will have a chance to win that. Man, Ian's going on right now. This is part of the inspiration of why we're doing this episode. I lived in Florida. You lived in Florida. I've been through the worst tornadoes on the history while I lived in Florida. It was horrible.
Yeah.
And with hurricanes, hurricanes, you have advance notice, so you can evacuate, right? Same thing most of the time with like wildfires. You've got advance notice, so you can get out of there. A lot of the other natural disasters, you don't have time to have an evacuation, to get everybody out easily. And so you'll have issues of all of a sudden all the roads are clogged because no one can get out.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't think you can't get out in advance with an earthquake because that hits you right away. But there's a lot of other ones like tornadoes. I think you can, hurricanes,
Depends on when the
typhoons.
tornado hits.
And where? Yeah. If it starts on your house, you're bummed.
You'll have a hurricane or a tornado alert system telling you, hey, there's likely to be tornadoes, right? I grew up in Denver and we'd had those all the time. It's like beep, beep, beep on the TV or the radio. It's like, hey guys, it's a natural disaster alerts. We've got likelihood of tornado in the next 4 hours. Watch for tornadoes. Find a low place in your house and stay there. And that's living in Denver. I mean, imagine living in Tornado Alley where that's happening every week, every month, for a year. I don't know how long it happens, what it's like, but you've got to have your plan before the disasters hit.
Yeah.
Right. You've got to have, we call them bug out bags, 72-hour kits. I hate that name. Should be a 96-hour kit. You have your kits, your bags designed specifically to withstand those scenarios. And you should have them ready and rooms ready in your house, depending on the types of scenarios that you might face. That's the first part of it.
It goes back to that old saying, when the time for decision arrives, the time for preparation has passed. And that was, I think, Thomas S. Monson that said that. And that's so wise. You've got to be ready ahead of time and kind of, can we prepare for everything? No. Can we prepare for the bulk of things? Yes. And so that's where we need to be wise about that. About what we're doing ahead of time and knowing what's probable in our area, what's probable in our zone, and then what are the things we need to worry about. Like, one thing that's critical is if there is a hurricane, like what's happening in Florida right now, and you can board up your house and you can be safe there, so to speak, bugging in as that hurricane hits, then that's something that you ought to be able to do. But if it's coming and there's going to be flooding or there's going to be water rising or just horrible things in the streets, winds at the 100-mile-plus-hour range where your roof might be flying off and your trees coming through your windows, because the trees are flying through the air, that you need to probably evacuate ahead of time and get out of there and get to a safer place or a place where it's not as dangerous for you. And
right.
But you got to know that ahead of time that, hey, if a flood hits, what's the most, I got to keep, at least 4 to 5 ways to get out of Dodge, so to speak, to get out of town.
Yep. What's your primary plan, your secondary plan, your tertiary or third plan, right? And also have layers of, okay, if we need to evacuate the city, this is where we go. If we need to evacuate the state, this is where we go, right? Put those plans in place now. Like if it's neighborhood, we go here. If it's city, we go here. If it's this type of disaster, like if we have wildfire, we can't just go to another nearby city. We got to go across the valley, right? Or we got to go, for us, we might have to leave and go 6 cities north to a safe place where we're completely out of the way. So, emergency disaster management can actually come in and take care of things while we're gone. Fire department can take care of things while we're gone. We live where I live, it's amongst the trees and the scrub oak, amongst the kindling. And so it's one of those things. It's like, have your plan in place so that if something happens, like for us, it's fire, you can take off.
Yeah. And fire should give you enough time to evacuate. If you have, there's a lot of people though that will wait to the last minute. That's, you want to be the captain of the ship goes down last and gets off the ship last, right? Or goes down with the ship, as some people say. But the reality is that you don't wait to the last minute if you don't have to, and don't be a martyr. If you got to get out to save yourself, get out to save yourself. I remember when I was in California, I was watching this guy who was a YouTube influencer, and he was in an area where the fires were coming at him, and he actually vlogged it. He started videoing it, and he had animals. He was in an area where there were some animals, and so he was concerned about what to do with the animals. So they were doing what they could to protect the area, to get the water, it was dry, but he was spraying with a hose to get to keep everybody safe as much as possible, as animals. Thankfully, after that worked and it helped, and he was able to come back. He had to evacuate, but he's able to come back, and his animals didn't die. He actually had to let them go. He had to let them out, but they all ended up being a little area that kind of stayed safe. And then when he came back, they were still there. So he was super fortunate. But I would rather be, there's certain places in your house that are safer than others. If a tornado or a hurricane comes, they always tell you the bathtub, that's one of the safest places to be in a hurricane or in a gale force winds. Just go lie in the bathtub.
Yep.
And that's really important. And, I don't want to take too much away from Hurricane Ian right now, but another form of evacuation plan is if you have just a house fire. Like maybe your whole neighborhood is fine, but you have the house fire. Yep. You need to evacuate. You need, if you need to have like a, what do you call it? Evacuation plans with your family.
Yep.
One of the things that I practice on, every night before we go to bed, my family, we all get together and we have a kind of a routine that we do where we talk about the next day, and we say a prayer as a family and other things. But one of the things that we do sometimes is practice our evacuation. Like if there was a burglar come in the front door, how would we evacuate out the back door? If there was a burglar through the back door, how would we evacuate through the windows or the front door? So it's it's important to practice your evacuation plans, or at least run some drills when you can and if you can.
Right. Utah Mike brought up a good point. Let me share this to our audience. You can see it all. I went through a California fire, not as much time as you think, right? You don't have as much time as you think you do to prep to get out of there, right? People risk their lives to save their house or stuff in their house, but they won't prepare by clearing a safe zone. Same problem here in Utah. When I lived in California, we had some pretty nasty wildfires that I was trying to get home, and I couldn't get home from a camping trip because of wildfires. And we ended up getting rerouted from Riverside County north to go all the way around into Diamond Bar, and even crossing over Diamond Bar to try to get into LA. They were evacuating that area, and we saw flames 100 feet high about 100 yards away from us.
Dang.
The fire was coming that fast, and we were like, crap, we may not make it through here. And we got into LA, got all the way to was the 101, and then we're able to come back down to Huntington Beach area. Like we were coming from Joshua Tree, which normally would take the 91 in to like I think the 60 and then go straight down, and you'd be in Newport Beach, and then Huntington Beach is right next to there. Was it the 50?
I think the 58.
58, yeah. It's been years. But I mean, it should have been like a 2.5, 3 hour drive, if I remember right. But we spent the entire day in the car trying to find a way home around away from the fire. And so they move fast. Fire moves so fast. And so, yeah, be able now, you've got time to put your plan together. In fact, by the time most people are listening to this, October 1st and April 1st are my 2 times a year that I go through my 96-hour kits and update them. I check the food. I rotate the water. I check and rotate food, or I eat the food and replace the food, right? To make sure it's always ready to go. I check my fire starters, everything. I go through the whole kit. I double check it. We've got lists on our website. If you go to preppertalkradio.com, go to the resources page, and you can actually check the lists and download those. But I go through those every 6 months. April and October. And in October, I replace the summer clothing with winter clothing. I add layers. And then I take them out in April when I don't need my big heavy coats, right? So I put those plans together and I double check those, but we always have the plan in place now so that we're not last minute going, oh, where's the medical records? Oh, where's the emergency stuff we need? It's in a binder in the backpack.
Yeah, that's excellent.
And you just grab the backpacks and you go. Save your lives. Hopefully you've got insurance, you can replace those things, but that's also part of emergency prep, having the right insurance in place. Do you have renter's insurance? Do you have homeowner's insurance? Do you have earthquake insurance? A lot of people don't. Most people don't.
I remember a buddy of mine, he had a business where he would work with insurance companies. He was an independent contractor, so he did this on his own, but he would work with people to go and videotape everything they had in their home and serial number and everything, so that when a house fire did happen and they made a claim, hey, I owned this. And the insurance company's like, prove it. Did you have that 75-inch TV? Well, yeah, I did. Prove it. Well, if you don't keep the receipts, which we never do, then you won't be able to prove it. But this guy was able to, make this video where he videoed everyone's product or all the stuff they owned. And then when it was time for the insurance adjuster to look, they literally handed him the thing and said, these are all the things that I owned that burned, or these are all the things that I owned that were destroyed. Mm-hmm. And the insurance adjuster's like, wow, these are, that was his business. He said the insurance adjusters are so grateful when they have those types of resources. Of course, they're sad too, because now they did prove it. Now they got to pay out more money. And the people who receive that are like, thank goodness I had this, because I wanted to get as much money as I could.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, it's important to document everything you have. Like, that's part of your planning, overall planning, right? You've got your evacuation plans. You've got your plans to hunker and, bunker down, shelter in place. You've got your plans if this happens or that happens, but also having, everything itemized and listed out. If you have the receipts, if you can take pictures and video and store it on the cloud in case your devices locally crash, like, that's one of the things I love and hate about Gmail is, like, you get all this storage space.
Mm-hmm.
Is it really private? Yeah, not really. Like, Gmail tells you we're not going to access it unless there's an emergency. What constitutes an emergency? But at least you could have, like, a record of all of your stuff on that cloud, and you can access it from any computer connected to the internet. So if you do have to leave your house due to fire, or there's something that happens that destroys everything, you can have it on a cloud device where you can just go in and say, okay, here's everything we need. Share that folder with your adjuster or your insurance rep and say, hey, this is all the stuff that got destroyed. Mm-hmm. Replace it.
Yep.
I pay you for this. Pay me. Right. Oh, it's crazy. Utah Mike also says April and October, rotate stored gas. Easy to remember. Right. Perfect timing. Ready.gov says you need to rotate your water every 6 months. So if you're rotating your water every 6 months, April and October is also the time to do it. I rotate mine every 6+ years, but that's because I live in a place where I can keep it in a dark, cool place, and there's no chance of it getting contaminated unless something penetrates those big containers. But do what makes sense for you, but make sure you're doing that this month coming up, October. I don't know. It's crazy to me how many people think they're prepared, especially in Utah, that aren't.
Mm-hmm.
Or they're like, oh, my mom and dad had that. My grandparents have that. They got enough for everybody when something happens. Do they really?
Right.
Do they really? Have you gone through it? Do you know how to use it? Do you know what your brothers and sisters are going to do when they get there too? Like, are people going to fight over it? Are they going to hoard it? Are they going to, are things going to go well? I'm pretty sure they won't.
Mm-hmm.
Like, think of it like when grandma and grandpa die, how's that inheritance going to get split? Is it going to go easy, or is everyone going to fight?
Yeah.
What's your family like?
Way too many people fight.
Mm-hmm. Way too many people fight. And, you know, I don't want to have to fight over that stuff.
Yep.
So I always prepare and take care of my own stuff. And even
That's
then,
part of it.
I think I have more preparedness stuff than anybody else in my family on both sides.
Anyways, yeah.
Right. I've got my own podcast. I better be better prepared. And what's funny is how many people in the family reach out to me with questions and like, hey, what do I do about this? Or where do I get the best food storage?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I don't know any of them that actually have a plan in place.
Wow.
As much as I tell everybody, the number one thing you can do is get planned and organized.
Mm-hmm.
Like those are the two things I talk about the most. Get your planning done and get organized. Now, nobody does it. It's
nobody
weird.
Does.
I don't get it. I wish I were better organized. And when I move, we'll get better organized. Right now, we're in the middle of trying to redo parts of the house, and so everything's kind of shifted.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's in this room, it's like, oh crap, I need this. Let me shift everything to the other side of the room so I can get to this. You know, so hopefully nothing crazy happens the next little while. But man, you've got to have plans. You got to get organized, and those things will save you. You know, if you can't get to your tools that you need in a disaster, and you can't get out of your house and you're stuck in there, like how are you going to ask for help? Think about those things. How are you going to ask for help? Like Katrina, you remember the stories of people who were trapped in their attics because they just figured, oh, I'll get to a high place in the house, and they never got outside, and so they're in their attic, and people are having to like break them out through the attic, through the roof. Do you remember seeing those videos?
No.
I saw a video. One guy was,
because they were trapped in the water or something.
The water was so high, they were in their homes, trapped in the attic, trying to get out. And I remember seeing videos of people like reaching through they popped out the little air vent and their arms waving, and guys on the roofs with chainsaws and axes cutting through to get people out.
Wow.
And it's like, yeah, like if you have to evacuate, don't stay in the house too long.
That's like 10, 15 feet of water. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, most of St. Louis, like New Orleans, like it's under sea level, most of it.
Yeah, that's true. Huh?
Like when I went down to visit with my wife, we saw a lot of the cemeteries. Everything's in raised concrete tombs, and you put the casket inside, and it's above ground. Like up here, we're like, what? You bury people 6 feet deep. Like that's the rule, and I don't even know why that's the rule, but that's the rule, 6 feet deep. But up there, it's like, no, they'd be in the water,
washed out. Yeah.
So it's amazing. You've got to take everything into consideration in your area. You have to plan for those things.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if not, then you're up a creek. And so part of being evacuating is having all your stuff ready to go and having everything that you need to do, ahead of time.
Right. Yeah. We just have to go. And so like, guys, if you're like, I don't know what to do, I don't know where to go, join our Facebook group, emergency prep and self-reliance. Go to our page and just make sure you follow us, get involved with us. We can help you with your planning. There's so many people in our group that can answer so many different questions. Like, guys, it's not that difficult to get your planning done. It's not that difficult to get things going and get organized, right? You just do it. Do it, guys. Just do it. And in fact, guys, we're going to have to wrap up our episode tonight a little early because of an evacuation plan that needs to take place. Unfortunately, Paris has a issue he's got to go take care of for his family, to help take care of one of his kids. So we're going to wrap early so he can go take care of that. But thank you guys for joining us in this short live, condensed live, and take this time that you would be listening to us or being tuned in right now, and go jump in our group and get the documents to start planning and get organized and get going. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for being here. We'll talk to you soon.
Take care.